It's Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. I'm Derek Dickow, and this is Impact. Optimistic today about the market, about the industrial market. What's your sense of what's happening today?
Well, we're always optimistic, and we're optimistic going on a forward basis. But I would say that in the short term, greenfield sites and development of those are going to be more difficult. I think the strongest commodity at the moment in our industry is not the real estate, but it's your tenants. And we have to do everything necessary to partner with our tenants to make sure that they are healthy, and we work in concert with them.
Talk about the working in concert with your tenants. Are you proactively reaching out to them? Are you waiting on them to contact you? How does that work from an operational standpoint for you? And how do you see the next few months shaping out in terms of, from your vantage point?
Well, it's an interesting question. I don't think that there's a recipe. Every situation, every project, every tenant is a little bit different. But obviously, we've spoken with all of our tenants, and we are being very mindful of what their situations are and whether or not they do or don't need some form of relief. And back when this first began in March, I think everyone was so very concerned, as of course we were, with regard to rent collections for April and for May. And now that April and May are behind us, and I think most of us have done better than we might have anticipated in terms of percentage of rent collection. I think that we now also realize that this problem is going to be here for a while, and it's going to move on into the summer and maybe into the autumn. And that's where we have our eye on the ball right now with regard to that timing.
How do you obtain valuations during a global pandemic?
That's a good question. I don't think you're going to get good valuations at the moment. I think that we have to wait for the fog to lift a bit and see where the dust settles. I think that there's not a lot of trading going on one way or the other, and I think that makes it difficult to establish values. If I could just go back for 1 second to something that Fadi was talking about, I think it's also important to talk about COVID safety on the job site. We have several construction projects that have just restarted from deals that were signed a while ago and were on hold while the governor had us under lockdown. And temperatures, taking of temperatures, filling out forms, getting information from the people that enter the construction site in order to keep themselves safe and others, I think is an important issue.
What exactly would you advise tenants to be communicating to landlords? So let's put the other hat on now, and what advice do you have for tenants to actually communicate to landlords during the pandemic?
Well, they have to be transparent. I think we heard that earlier. I think Ari might have mentioned that. The tenants have to be transparent, and we have to have an open ear. With that said, it is a delicate dance between what goes on with the tenant and the type of relief that they may need or want. Opportunistic tenants that might not need it yet take the advantage of what is going on because of COVID to look for things that are much more difficult for us to produce. You have to be very careful when you're modifying a lease, because you don't want to be in a situation where you are in a violation of your covenant with your mortgage lender, and then the mortgage lender plays a role as well. So there's really three parties to the question that you asked, between the landlord and the tenant and the lender.
And where do you see in this equation, where do you see landlords generally making the most mistakes right now?
Well, we try not to make mistakes, so I can't speak for other landlords. We don't intend to make it.
What advice, let me ask you this, what advice do you have for other landlords that have a smaller portfolio that are going through this pandemic? What advice do you have for them right now?
As I said earlier, I think the most important thing right now for the next 3, 4, 5 months are the tenants. I think you have to be partners with your tenants. You have to understand exactly what their needs are and what their problems are and how to give them relief. And if you are smaller in size, you're just going to be more hands-on. You've got to be there. You've got to show up. I know that's hard to do right now with COVID, and there's some lockdowns and things of that nature, but you have to be there for your customer. Most important.
I want to ask all three of you this. This will be my final question, so do your best in terms of time. Warren Buffett is famous for saying it pays to be greedy when others are fearful. What is the most important piece of advice you would give to an investor right now?
Look for opportunities, keep your eyes and ears open. And when common sense tells you not to do something, do it.